Hello, my name's Pat Hertzler, and I am going to talk to you today about being a Peace Corps volunteer. And being a volunteer is the topic of my talk today. I hope that at the end of my talk, you'll have some ideas about things that you could do, that you could volunteer to do that would help your community, that would be fun for you and interesting for you, and also things that would look good on your resume when you finally get ready to apply for a job or apply to for further education. You can list down on your resume things that you've done as a volunteer to show that you have interest, various interests in getting things done and helping other people. But I was a Peace Corps volunteer not too long ago in Bulgaria. And that's where I met Felicia Bibbin, and you may know her. She was an instrumental person in getting the spelling bee started, and that was part of her Peace Corps volunteer assignment, was to work in the community and to do things to help the community that they were interested in doing and that she was interested in doing, which resulted partially in this spelling bee program. But I'm going to tell you what I did as a Peace Corps volunteer so that you can get an idea of just different kinds of opportunities to volunteer. Peace Corps is only one situation where you can volunteer. And let's clarify at first what the meaning of the word volunteer is. It means something you choose to do. It's totally up to you. There's nobody tells you to be a volunteer. That would be like an oxymoron. It's a situation that you find that could use some help, and you would like to, and you have interest in helping them. So you would step up and volunteer. Of course, as a volunteer, you can quit at any time, but it always benefits everybody if you pick something and then stick with it for a good amount of time. But as a Peace Corps volunteer, I started out in Nicaragua, where I was a volunteer teaching in an elementary school, and my topic was environmental topics. So I taught the children about different environmental things, and while I was there, I taught the children how to volunteer, and we picked up bottles and cans in the community for recycling. So they had an experience in volunteering. It was something they could do. They didn't have to, but if they wanted to, they could help us with that. I came back after 2 years in Nicaragua, and I got the opportunity to come to Bulgaria. And there I lived in the Krasno Selo neighborhood or area of Sofia. And my volunteer job there was to work at the University of New Bulgaria in their school with young children with autism or with some sort of disability that may not have been diagnosed as autism. And that's where I met Felicia, and I volunteered to help her with the spelling bee, and I volunteered to make this video. So these are all volunteer things I'm doing to help out some other organization. After I came back home from Bulgaria, I had the opportunity to go to Liberia, which is in West Africa. Now, the reason I volunteered for Peace Corps in the first place was to travel and experience different cultures, experience different languages, and I got all of those interests of mine were fulfilled by my opportunities in Peace Corps volunteer, as a Peace Corps volunteer. But while I was in Liberia as a Peace Corps volunteer, and I was working in a kind of a community college setting with older students, but I volunteered in other ways in that community to help out people who needed glasses, and they didn't have the money to get glasses to help them read. So we connected them, the students, with the Lions Club, and the Lions Club is a group of volunteers who help distribute eyeglasses in their communities. So I came home from Liberia, and then I went back with another Peace Corps volunteer opportunity to Ecuador, where I was volunteering as an English teacher. And while I was there, I had other opportunities to volunteer. There was a huge earthquake in Ecuador while I was there, so I volunteered. I wasn't volunteering as a teacher then because the schools were closed, but I volunteered to help get food and mattresses and other necessary items to people who had suffered from the earthquake. So there's always a lot of places that anyone can volunteer. Right now, with this COVID-19 crisis, I am volunteering in a food bank in my community where the grocery stores donate their extra food, and then we volunteers in the food bank package that food up and hand it out to families in the neighborhoods where food is needed and they might not have the money or the opportunity to get the food they need for their family. So I'm volunteering. Nobody told me to do this. I'm just doing it because I want to. So your assignment, after hearing of my volunteer activities, is to think of something you could do in your community that interests you, that something that needs help, some organization or some people who need help. And the third thing to think about is something you can put on your resume when you apply for a job or apply for further education. You can always list your experience as a volunteer, and that says a lot to a potential employer or to the school that you're applying to. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about my volunteer activities, and I certainly hope you become a volunteer in some capacity, because you will benefit as much as the organization that you help.